Oh shit, here we go again.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Welcome back into another Dragon Ball Super Card Game video, and today I want to talk about the ban list coming in July. And the reason why it took so long to talk about it is because I kind of wanted to gather my thoughts, take a look at what everybody is saying as well, and sort of understand what options Bandai can really take and present those options. I actually think they put themselves in a bit of a dilemma. But before I begin, let me know in the comments below what you think is going to be banned, what is going to be touched, what shouldn't be touched, what are you be playing, whatever it may be, in the comments below. Now, I've done this quite a lot in the past, probably about a half a dozen times for every single ban list that has come out. And this one's a little bit different because of the post that they put on their official Facebook, and it read, "We'll have a wide-ranging limit ban and errata update." It's a bit of a cryptic message, but honestly, like I said, it puts themselves in a little bit of a dilemma. There's a few things that they have to consider. The first thing is that they have to define what a wide-ranging ban list looks like. If you take a look at the ban list and the errata updates and all the other stuff, I think the most that they've actually put on the list is about 6. So if they haven't really considered that to be a wide-ranging ban list, then it's most likely going to be more than 6. We could see up to 15, could see up to 10. It doesn't really, no one really knows. But I think the consensus is that hopefully it doesn't really go the Yu-Gi-Oh route where it bans out a lot of different things and completely changes the format and completely changes a lot of different things. While I like to say that I would like something fresh, I don't know if I would actually like the result of it. I will be going over some options of what that could and looks like, depending on the number of things that they put on the list. The second thing is going to be the community backlash and as well as the feedback. With any ban list, people are going to be speculating and people are going to be talking about it. And I think the reason why they announced the roadmap and didn't even just do it immediately or within a few days like they usually do, I think they wanted to see what the community thinks, what everybody thinks about what the possibilities could look like for any of the cards, and maybe take in consideration for one of the two things for the ban list. And I know they probably do the ban list just like how they do card designs, or at least printing, and they probably do it in months in advance. But they also probably look at tournament results, how best of 1 is doing, best of 3 is doing, probably why they look at the things like the store championships for the best of 3, some of the webcam events that we're having right now, all those different things. And historically, they have listened to the community, so this is not going to be surprising if that's the case. Now, the third thing is going to be the secondary market. I know a lot of people think that Bandai doesn't really care about the secondary market, and to a certain extent, that is true. But at the end of the day, they probably wouldn't have reprints if they didn't care at all about the secondary market. With any ban list, I think, you have to consider what the results are when people are investing into more expensive cards or the better cards over time. And this can be an accessibility issue, or at least something that really could turn off new players when they're considering to invest into the game and buy a competitive deck for a higher price. And the same thing for people who have invested competitively or not, because if there is a wide-ranging ban list every time that comes out of ban list, pretty much every set, then what's the point of investing if it's just going to get hit? This, however, is probably the lowest priority when it comes to balancing the game itself. The last thing is going to be the waterfall effect, is what I like to call it. Basically, what this means is that when you ban certain things, then people are going to be leaning towards something else. Now, you have to consider, if you're going to be banning like a bunch of control decks, are there going to be a lot of aggro decks or things that don't really put that in check or is left unchecked? And do you have to ban or limit and put down the power level of those things too? I don't think there's going to be too many things that people lean towards. I think if, like, let's say Mecha Frieza or Dark Broly are going to be hit, and then people might lean towards maybe red, or maybe Sin Shenron, things like that. But we'll talk about that. At the end of the day, I think Bandai does a really good job of the ban list in the previous list that they put out. They have a pretty good track record. I think there's only a couple of things that I don't really agree with. But honestly, I'm not going to have any issues. I'm still going to enjoy the game. Before I go into my predictions and the options they could take, as far as my opinion goes, I think the game is in a pretty good place right now. There's diversity to a certain extent. But again, there are problems, like linear problems that this game has had as far as generic things and as well as free play. If we can lean towards not having so many free to play things, and as well as a little bit more skillful and a bit more fun interactions within the combo step or whatever it may be, then I would like that. And I always, whenever anybody asks me if I'm enjoying the game, I usually compare it to Digimon, where Digimon is really nice as far as nice sprints to the finish line when you're playing the game, and it doesn't really feel bad when you lose, and it feels pretty good when you win. And of course it's only up to set 4, but whatever. I think conceptually the game is pretty good. Well, as DBS is kind of like a marathon where you have to sort of know everything in order to be at that top level or even to have success. And when you lose, it feels really bad. I might be kind of alone in that, but whatever. All right, let's talk about the different options that they can take. The first one is what I like to call the safe route. First one is just banning outright the Mecha Frieza leader. This will prevent any of the whole notion of why play any other yellow leader when you can just play Mecha Frieza for any of these yellow extra cards and just yellow in general. I think there's a couple of arguments where U9 is kind of the issue, but I don't think U9 is really an issue as far as assemble goes or any of the U9 pieces. I think Bergamo does really well as a leader to do that, and maybe just yellow in general if you're playing Aegis. But for Mecha Frieza in particular, you pay 1 energy, you plus basically 3 cards, the 3 cards that you draw, and then the body that you put down, which could potentially draw you 1 for the 1 drop, etc. So I don't think that's too much of a big deal if you're paying 2. You're replacing itself and you're not getting another card out of it. But this is kind of the reason why Mecha Frieza is a bit of an issue in general, right? So when we actually start printing more and more cards that do more and more things as far as an extra card, people are going to lean towards Mecha Frieza before they even consider any other yellow leader in general. The leader just has to go. I think that's going to be the cleanest thing that they can do. That's my opinion. Now, reboot Gohan. There's going to be people who say, you know, blue, yellow, whatever color has answers for yellow Gohan, and it hasn't topped. There's a reason we don't see it, etc., etc. But I think based on the simple fact, not any on that stuff, but based on the simple fact that Bandai made the decision to say, hey, this is a problem in best of 1. Okay, we'll ban it in best of 1. And now in best of 3, or just in general, it probably should be banned outright. There's not really a reason to keep the leader around if we have already acknowledged the issue that it has already. He doesn't really do anything as far as a unique archetype, if that's what they want to do, or a unique thing for the leader or for the archetype itself. It's not really tied to anything. It's really just swing a bunch of times with triple strike and as well as triple strike critical. I think there's a lot of other different ways that you can make green good. Reboot Gohan is not the way. I already have 2 reboot leaders, and you'll probably see the next list too, so not a good track record for that one, Bandai. But limiting new ruler is sort of the concept of like less free things. I think the one of new ruler should be considered. Okay, real quick, I got something wrong here for the new ruler Piccolo. I was saying that you can play it over and over again, but the activate main is not. But I'm still in the camp of having it 1 only because it is free, and it's just that extension in red that probably doesn't really need to be there. And then we have Dark Broly for mono black cards being played. Just like Vegex, you can only play mono black cards. This will prevent the heartfelt play, which I think is probably the biggest issue in Dark Broly. And then the second part is that it still is going to be really, really strong for all the 30Ks you can spam out, and as well as the SS3 Gogeta. I'll kind of talk about other options for Dark Broly, but I think this is probably the best route they can take if they do hit Dark Broly. And then Drum being unique or errata for a unique tag is probably going to be the next best step. So that way you can continue to play Drum at 4. You continue to play multiple if you block, and then it goes to the combo step for the leader, and you can just play another one. I think 15K barrier blockers are not that great in general, but I think as a designed card, as it's a design in general, is not that great. The fact that you can have multiple of these guys and have it as defense in King Piccolo doesn't feel that great. Red already has quite a lot of defensive options. I don't think Drum kind of puts it over the top. That's just my opinion. Okay, let's go to the next list before I get crucified for more stuff. This is more leading towards things that I don't really too much agree with, but I can see if there's, you know, if this is going to happen and be put on the list for all these things that we see here. This is my opinion of what that looks like. We still have the things that we talked about before. Vegex is now on the banned list leader, or banned list as a leader, simply because it's like literally everything in Vegex has been banned, but the leader itself, like Turles, the U2 stuff, literally everything for Vegex has been banned, and there's like no reason to play any other burst leader from Mass Saiyan, like the reboot one. The Black Mass Saiyan, Xenogoku was one of my favorite leaders in general. It's super sad to see that it just doesn't get played at all. And the reason for that is because Vegex does all of that better on a more efficient basis and for free. I think it's time for that leader to go. Like all the stuff that Vegex has within a starter deck is perfectly fine. I don't think that's that big of a deal. You still are in the crutches of RNG, and yes, some people will say like, you know, it's RNG, it's never gonna like win. It's not that's not the point. We're talking about design here. We're talking about future design here, and it's been around for a long time for a reason. Anyway, so limited for King New Ruler, Dormant Potential. So the reason why I put this on here is because Bandai just has a hard on for just removing, all right, the limited list. So we already have New Ruler, we already talked about that. Dormant Potential. So the reason why I put this here is because Bandai just randomly just banned stuff and limit stuff for green for whatever reason. We already took away Roshi, which I think which just makes sense for Dormant Potential. I think when we're talking about uninteractive and unfun gameplay, Dormant Potential is sort of that thing. If people start leading towards green, or if it gets more support in the future, Dormant Potential might be an issue as far as just making sure that we can actually play the game together. Just the fact that you only have one more turn after the attack and you can just block the other one or defend yourself against the other one, it's kind of annoying. I don't think it's personally an issue. I just put it on the list because, like I said, I'm just putting the thoughts out there and the options they might take. Now, Mecha Frieza, again, is sort of the same concept for yellow. The fact that you can play 4 of them, the fact that it can be a one cost 15K, and the fact that you have to play around literally just swinging through, tapping down everything that you have up to like what, turn 2, turn 3 and onward, again, is sort of doesn't feel good. And like the game just doesn't feel good when it does that. And I think the argument for that, at least to consider when things don't really feel too good, when decks do the things that they want to do, it doesn't seem like anything feels good. But again, reducing those things might be the way for Bandai. And then lastly is the Cell Xeno secret. Just put it to 3 or more energy. That'll prevent like turn 2, turn 1 Cell Xenos, and just getting hit with a 40k quadruple strike that is hard to get rid of on turn 1 or 2 is kind of not really great for the game. I think 3 energy is great, and just limited to saying you only play this card if you have 3 more energy. That'll solve some issues there. Okay, this last option for the list that they could go for is what I like to call the Zen Oh Snap. This is not at all what I think is going to happen. Not all the stuff that I agree with either, but I think if they really want to change a lot of things in the game, then they'll probably do something like this, or maybe even introduce some rule changes, just like how Vanguard did for the Mulligan, or just like how any other card game does for like adding summoning sickness for certain cards or certain things like that. Okay, here it is. So going through it really quick, Blue Baby, just being that, again, playing a lot of cards on your turn, not really doing anything, not being very interactive, being very fun, and being a blue generic leader where you can just throw in an engine and throwing a bunch of negates. It just seems like it is just not very healthy for the game. I can see that argument. Again, I don't really, I kind of wouldn't be too mad if Blue Baby went away. That's just me. Then we have the Champas. Again, it's sort of the thing of like what JD loves to say, best win con in the game is your leader and Champa, because that is literally the thing of, again, you can't really interact with it other than maybe a couple cards. I don't think, yeah, Vegeta Flash doesn't hurt it. Vegeta or Krillin in 18 doesn't hurt it. Godstrike doesn't hurt it. There's a few specific cards that you can do in order to prevent that. I guess a negate of your leader, and then just hoping that you have something like Hero's Lineage or something else for your battle card. But this kind of takes away from that. And one of the things that I don't think this is going to get hit. I think if they do hit it, I can understand it because there are certain things in a lot of different archetypes and leaders where it gains double strike within the combo step. Something like Kraken Space Time, something like 18s and Krillins for the token and give a double strike. Something like battle cards like Beerus and Champa giving double strike. Things like that, it feels like it can do without it. I personally like Champa and Kai. It's the 1 of or 2 of that you can throw in any deck. But again, if they're looking towards to move away from generic-y or being generic, then this is going to be the way. Dormant Potential, just like the same thing I was saying before, they just ban it, just like, why not? Senzu Bean. Senzu Bean's been around for the longest time, and it always ends up in the top playing decks because it's so generic and it does a lot for you. But I think it's sort of like that necessary evil where It needs to be a nice little defensive option for any deck that can play. I personally like the game to look towards being more archetypal or being more color centric and leader locked. If there was a sensu bean that was more color or leader locked, then I would be more happy for that. But the fact that it is generic, again, is just something to consider. You really kind of already talked about that. The ball being banned is because that the rata at the bottom, where you can only play one 30k battle card on the field, just like the permanent for the green Broly leader, would be the option here. And I think if you get rid of the heartfelt play, or at least the ball, you'll get rid of the heartfelt play. We can still play the Broly for 2. You can still play in the toilet leader. You can still play it in maybe any other Broly leader in the future. It's not like they can't ban the Broly leader and then reprint one in another set. Just remember that. Then we have the catastrophic blow at 2. The fact that you can get burned for 5 to 7 life and within 1 turn is really uninteractive. And again, I don't think there's too much of an issue with Invoker in itself. It's a very annoying deck to play against, but our resident Invoker player George on our team is not going to be very happy for me to say this, where you can still see the catastrophic blow. You can still do 4 damage within 1 turn. And I think just knocking it down just a peg when all these other cards are going to be banned and people lean towards more of a control and different deck, then I can see this happening. Yes, I understand that Invoker is hard to play. Yes, I understand that it's a skill intensive deck, but it's not supposed to be easy to play. It's not supposed to be able to pick up and just do. You're rewarded for all the things that it does do and the things that you learn for the deck. And at its highest level, again, catastrophic blow is probably the only thing that doesn't seem like a great thing to go against. I will say that it's probably not going to get hit because of all the counterplays that the 6-drop Goku can run into. Now, the Goten, or the Gogeta that is, for the limited, I think it is probably one of the, I actually do agree with it being limited. I don't know if it's gonna be 1, but the fact that it's sort of the same thing with a new ruler, you're not really punished too much other than 1 energy, which is just nuts for a 25k double striker that removes 1. But because you can play it for Overrealm, it gets counterplayed or responded to, and then you can just play another one for Union Fusion. And again, this will knock down a peg for any of the decks in the future, which again, if they make the same mistake for Dark Broly or the same mistake for Vegex for being generically good as a black leader, this will force people to be a little bit more careful for playing this. I can probably see this at 2 as well. Now, Cooler, I don't think Cooler is too much of an issue because, you know, I played a lot of yellow decks in the past, and I think Cooler is one of those cards where it's sort of useless in a lot of different scenarios, and then it's also sort of incredible in other scenarios. And I think the biggest thing to consider why it could be limited or banned is because of the comparison to the Majin Buu. Well, 1, Bad Ring is banned. Okay, so just think about that. And the 2 is that the Majin Buu secret is at 1 because it is a secret, and they printed it for technically black leaders and as well as green leaders for a reason to pay for 3. Why not Cooler being at 1 at the same time? Like, why is Cooler at 4 if that secret is at 1 as a counter? Just remember that this is a counter, not a counter attack, just like Almighty Resistance. There's a difference. Anyway, moving on. Same thing for Cell Xeno, just 5 or more energy. You actually are locked into playing it for all of the effects that it does give and waiting until turn 5. If you get to turn 5 with Cell Xeno and you have the setup, then you should win the game. That is the sort of the concept for secrets, and I think that should be the concept for Cell Xeno too. I do agree with the auto being once per turn for Piccolo Jr. as far as the unison. There's not really too much to say about this. I'm not sure why they didn't put a once per turn for the counter effect. All right, let's just wrap this up for the honorable mentions. There's other stuff that people mentioned. Koitsukai, I don't really see an issue. If you're playing a lot of cards on my turn and they're lower cost cards, I think there should be a check for that within the best of 3. Again, one of the reasons why why Blue Baby might not be hit. Same thing for Planet Tuffle. They're not going to hit the Tuffle. They're going to hit the leader before they hit Tuffle. Soul Striker, kind of a thing of, again, being a generic, really strong leader. If I think right now and probably in the future, there are pretty good archetypes within Blue, as in Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, as in Bojack, etc. But I think as we lean towards, again, a generic good leader, it's going to be Soul Striker. You know, when you really think about it, you can just slap in a bunch of 3-cost unisons and then all the blue engine that you want to do, whether it's skillless, whether it's the Bojack engine, whether it's whatever. And I think people might have success for that, especially since you can play God Sailing, you can play all these other really good blue cards. Blue is just in a weird place because all these other cards do more and do it faster because of like blue or yeah, because of like black and because of yellow and all this other good decks. Heartfelt I don't really think is an issue because it takes a lot to set up. The only issue right now is probably Dark Broly. I think maybe King Vegeta with the funnel flat or the IR, the red IR that boosts, and you can just use Heartfelt for that. I don't think that's too much of an issue. It takes a lot of setup. Absolute Annihilation is kind of a fair card because you're paying 3. It does have Deflect and Barrier, but it doesn't really do too much versus a lot of different decks. This is a very specific card for very specific decks. Don't see it as an issue. Turning the Tide, if you're getting to 7 energy outside of Baby, you should be losing, honestly, against a blue deck. So I don't really see him as an issue. It is uninteractive, but it is uninteractive to an extent of you are playing it for 7 energy. So Topo is a necessary evil. You're paying 2. It could be responded in pretty much every single color outside of yellow. Other than that, you can play Tyrannical maybe. All of the colors have the 1-drop counterplays that can respond to Topo. Same thing for Poutine. Vegeta Final Flash, not too much of an issue. Up until the point where you can take a life for free and then just negate any of the skills that you're going against other than the leader or Unison. And I don't think it's going to be touched. That is it. Honestly, this is going to take forever for me to edit, but I talked a lot. Let me know what your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe if you are new. I cannot wait to see the comments in the Facebook when I post that picture, and people are going to start freaking out and call me wrong or call me stupid. That's great. I love it. It's going to be a fun time. I'll see you in the next one.